Hi, I'm Kenny Klaus, and this is State 48 Homeowner.
Hey everybody, this is Scott Kooiman. We have Ty Lusk with us from the Klaus Team. How you doing, Ty?
Doing well, thank you.
So one of the things that we have in common is we both invest in buy and hold strategies for long-term rentals. And Ty, we've got a lot of clients that work in short-term rentals.
That's right. Yeah, it's a really fascinating area, and I've always loved to learn more about it, so I'm super excited for today's guest.
We're glad to have Jenni Vega with us. Jenni, how many properties, short-term and medium-term rental properties do you have?
Well, I'm super excited to be here, by the way, so thanks for having me. I have 7, and 5 of those I own by myself with my husband. 2 of those I own with a partner.
So how did you first get into it?
Well, I actually read a book called Hold, which is written by Jenni Vega and Steve Chater, who are both in the Keller Williams family.
We love them.
Yes, amazing book. And I read this in 2019 on a Sunday afternoon, and I couldn't put it down. And I actually couldn't believe that no one had given this book to me sooner. So it's a must-read book for anyone interested in real estate investing. And read the book, and I immediately saw how important it was to build wealth through real estate investing. And I'm from Wisconsin, and at that time, I just didn't have the funds to buy a property in Arizona at that time, and we were very limited with our budget. So we decided to buy in Wisconsin because that's where I'm from. And we were able to pull a down payment together for a home that was $160,000 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So that was our first property.
That's awesome. Now, that is a good book. And if anybody wants to dive back into the archives of the podcast, just go to state48homeowner.com, go to the search, and just look up Steve Chater, Chader, and he kind of goes into that. And that was a book that was pretty foundational for me getting into real estate investing as well. It's a different model, and I think a lot of people have some misconceptions about short-term rentals and medium-term rentals. Now, you've got 7 properties. You must have just a ton of nightmares that you've gone through.
Very few nightmares, actually. So one of the misconceptions is people think that your property gets a lot of wear and tear, but short-term rentals can actually get less wear and tear than long-term because your cleaner is in the property sometimes a couple times a week, doing a deep inspection, cleaning it precisely. So we've hosted over 300 people, and we've only had about 2 or 3 absolute nightmare stays. So when you think about long-term, someone's in that property for a year, 2, 3 years, and you're not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
So I've heard stories of people with long-term where they have to completely replace carpeting, paint, completely renovate between tenants. So with this, you've got eyes on the property all the time. And also, Airbnb just implemented something called air cover, which means even if someone does trash your place, even if the guest refuses to pay, Airbnb will agree to pay for a lot of that. And there's also secondary insurance. In fact, today we have a call to onboard secondary insurance where we're actually going to be making profit anytime, believe it or not, anytime we have an issue, or actually every stay, we're going to be making about $23 for every booking profit through our own insurance.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's great news.
So on a lot of those platforms, which the 2 major ones are Airbnb and VRBO, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People kind of need to protect their reputation as the tenant, the people that are coming in there. They have a reputation to maintain on there too. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. So you have the chance to review them, and they can review you as well.
And so, that's a little bit different than, long-term tenants. We can do a background check, but there's not we can't see reviews from all of their previous landlords.
Yeah, I keep thinking back about the first property in Milwaukee that you mentioned, or Wisconsin, right? And then, so what did you immediately turn that into a vacation rental, or what was the process, and how did you get it ready? Like, what happened with that one?
So we were going to do long term, and at the 11th hour, right as we were closing, I talked my husband into short term because I really believe in it, believed in the concept, and we had rented so many Airbnbs. And immediately that property did really well, despite launching it the first week of January, which in Wisconsin is, very cold.
A little chilly.
Yeah. And what I love about that property is that property can be long-term, it can be mid-term for traveling nurses, and it can be short-term. And we've actually done all of that. So we launched a few months before COVID. And so during COVID, we transitioned into long-term. So we immediately got a long-term tenant. And twice now, we've also rented to traveling nurses. So that's a great market for traveling nurse, and it's also a great market for Airbnb. So we love that market because we have 3 different strategies there.
So let's talk about the medium term. You talk traveling nurses. Are there other people that are going to do a medium term rental?
Yes, insurance companies as well. And we haven't tapped into that yet. We just discovered this a few weeks ago. We met another investor who's doing this. So apparently there's companies, I think there's one called AIG that you can call and just register with them. And when they have families that are displaced through insurance claims, fires and whatnot, they'll call you and see if your house is available.
And here in Arizona, too, we have medium-term rentals for senior citizens that are, winter visitors that are here for just a few months out of the year. So there's some opportunities there as well.
I know probably 3 real estate professionals that have rental properties they use specifically for that. If one of their clients is waiting on a home to be built, or there's a transition between their closing and their next purchase, where they're using those homes exclusively for their clients or clients within their brokerage who need a transitional solution between, in most cases it's that. They've sold one house, they're building a new one, or they're renovating another one and they need a short-term place to stay. So that's another avenue I'm hearing a little more about lately.
So, Jenni, how are you finding houses? I know you do some custom builds and you do buy existing homes. How do you find them? How do you decide what makes a great short-term rental?
My standards have really changed, and how we found houses in the past is different than how we're going to find them moving forward. In the past, it was mostly just Realtor.com and Zillow. We did the latest one we acquired in Florida. We actually just launched that one about a week or 2 ago. That was a wholesale off market. So I found that through a friend who has some rentals out there who couldn't buy it, but passed it to me and asked if I wanted to buy it. We also just completed a new build in Tennessee, and that was a very challenging but rewarding process. So moving forward, I really want to do some more new builds. As tough as the process is, I really believe in it. I believe in instant equity, and the way that Airbnb is going is unique stays. And the market is becoming a little bit flooded with more and more rentals. And I just believe in creating unique stays and unique builds and experiences that are different. And I'm really excited to create that. I actually just met with Shell Homes yesterday. They're right here in Mesa, and excited to just do things with them in the future. So really passionate about that, and just unique architecture and giving guests that wow experience.
Hey everyone, this is Kenny Klaus with Klaus Team Real Estate Solutions. We know there's a lot of confusion in today's market, whether it's billboards, TV, radio, mail. Everyone's trying to get your attention. They offer one lane, where at the Klaus Team, we have over 20 different programs we can help you navigate through to find out what's best for you. And remember, we work for you, they work for themselves. We're here to represent you and make sure you have the best experience possible.
Visit us at klausteam.com/call us first.
So do you have an example of what one of your unique experiences looks like and feels like for the person?
The one that we built in Tennessee, it has a really cool roof, and it has like floor to ceiling walls. And then they look out to the woods, and you're totally surrounded in nature. It has a huge wraparound deck. So anything that's just non-cookie cutter, anything where you can, build into the trees, have an amazing view. I actually like to borrow other ideas. So, I was talking to them yesterday and just explaining, moving forward, we can even just go into Airbnb, and there's a section called Wow Listings. So you can just borrow like what other people are doing and just kind of copy. There's like, you can build something that looks like a castle. There's like dome houses. And I think the key with building is to make sure that it's not so far out there that it's sellable. You don't want something super crazy. So one thing that's really popular right now is tree houses. The builder that we just worked with in Tennessee explained tree houses are super expensive to build and they're very hard to sell. So if you're going to build the tree house, you don't want it to be super crazy like a real tree house. You want it to look like a tree house, but not really be a tree house.
Right, so basically a house in the trees.
So maybe a house slightly elevated, but not a real tree house, you know? Yeah, so there's so many different ideas. But yeah, so just moving forward, just unique stays. But yeah, so in the past, just, you know, realtor.com, Zillow, we're looking into like boutique hotels moving forward because we're looking to scale. But for someone just getting started, just working with a realtor, you know, working with your team, obviously, and there's nothing wrong with just finding something on market. You know, even if something has to be renovated, one of our homes is actually a manufactured home that we completely renovated. And we might have broken the rules of investing because most people would say that's a big no-no, but it's on 1 acre of land near the Grand Canyon. And we have not had a single guest put in their review that they stayed in a manufactured home. Nobody knows they're in a manufactured home. So you can break some of the rules of investing and get away with it.
I'm curious on this build in Tennessee. Like, how involved were you in the process? How many times did you go there? Like, what was that experience like managing from Arizona?
I actually, my husband and I, we broke all the rules. I mean, I know you're supposed to like go out there and oversee. I didn't even go out there and see this until it was a month from being completed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I remember flying out there, you know, landing and getting to the hotel the night before seeing it. And I almost had a heart attack. I could barely sleep that night. Just thinking, oh my gosh, like, what? I don't know how this is going to look. I don't even know what if they built it in the wrong spot. But everything turned out great. And I also got lucky with a great builder. But also, this was our 6th one. And we were pretty experienced at this point. So I can't say I would recommend this for everyone. You know, it probably is a better idea if you're going to do that to stay, you know, maybe stay local. We just got lucky. I've also heard a lot of nightmare stories with builders. And so definitely, like, if you're going to build, vet your builder highly. Unfortunately, not everyone gets so lucky.
Well, it seems like there's also a lot of people out there that want to get involved with this, but maybe there are other markets where it's a little more affordable, or there are more vacationers, or more people that a higher demand for short-term rentals. And I know, you know, most of yours are outside of Arizona, with one exception. And so one of the things that we want to do for our clients is to have the relationships that we do across the country with agents that are doing this in those markets. And so if somebody were to want to get into short-term rentals in a different market outside of Arizona, we can still help with that through partnerships we have with real estate professionals nationwide, and can even help kind of guide and pinpoint some of the areas they might consider checking out. So what advice do you have for somebody that is thought about it? They've got a little money set aside and they're like, hey, this is my year to get into short-term rentals. What would you tell them, or what would you do if you were in their shoes?
As far as finding a market?
Or just what to do first? Yeah, how to get started in it? What market should they consider? Who should they talk to? What kind of advice would you give somebody who says, look, I've got a little money set aside, I want to get into short-term rentals, what do I do next?
Okay, so the first thing I would do is go on Amazon, order the book by Avery Carl, Short-Term Rentals, Long-Term Wealth. That will give you some direction. Now, you're going to hear some people say, don't do this out of town or out of state. You're going to hear other people like me. I think it's fine. It really depends on your personality. You're going to hear some people say Airbnb is saturated. I'm going to say there's no such thing as saturation. It all depends on how you stand out. Now, the Phoenix market is fantastic, by the way. It all depends on your comfort level as far as where you want to go. Now, another myth I would like to bust is that you have to do this in the vacation market. That is absolutely not true. Believe it or not, people have the need for short-term rentals everywhere. Milwaukee, Wisconsin is not a vacation market. It is just not.
Especially not in January.
Especially not in January. And all of our guests are there because they have, funerals to go to. They have people get married. They are traveling for work. We have another rental an hour from Tulsa, Oklahoma, in a random small town, and we've hosted 120 people. Not a single one has been there for vacation. The other thing I can say is there are people like me that are now doing this full time. They're savvy investors. This is what they do. And they are flooding markets like Smoky Mountains, Tennessee, Panama City, Florida, beach markets, Orlando, Grand Canyon. They're flooding places like this, and they're buying up tons of rentals in true vacation markets. So there might even be more opportunities in non-vacation markets because they're not thinking about markets like that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be less inventory, but markets that people still go to. I will say in Arizona, one market that I would not buy in Payson, Pine Top, or Show Low. I have friends that own there and that told me that during COVID, they just crushed it. They did great. Why did they do great? Because in COVID, people wanted a place to stay like that. They wanted to work from home. In Arizona, I think the best places are absolutely Maricopa County. I think Tucson would be great, and Coconino County. Think about it. If you are traveling from out of state and you're coming to Arizona, would you have ever heard of Payson or Pine Top? No.
Probably not.
Have you heard of the Grand Canyon? Have you heard of Sedona? Absolutely. Flagstaff? Yeah, probably. And Flagstaff is a college town. And would you have heard of Phoenix, Scottsdale? Heck yeah. Oh yeah. And there's tons of conferences all the time in Phoenix and Scottsdale, and even Mesa, Gilbert. East Valley is huge. There's tons of growth here. So I would absolutely, in a heartbeat, buy anywhere in the valley for that matter, in a heartbeat. And Coconino County is an absolute hotspot for sure. There are a lot of people, even investors from California, that are buying here in Maricopa County and they're buying in Coconino County, not Payson. No. Now, I would say if you live in the valley and you really love to vacation, you really want a vacation home in Payson, Show or Pine Top, great. If that's your place to go with your family and you don't mind breaking even on your Airbnb or making some profit, and that's a place that you really want to go with your family and you really want to have a second home there and vacation, and for some reason you want it to be there and not Coconino County, then great. But if it's just
and that is a
Airbnb,
different strategy. It's really it's not as much of an income opportunity as much as making a vacation home possible for you. That doesn't cost you a whole lot in the long term, and even making sure the house is kept up when you're not there, just by having short-term tenants in there and the cleanings in between. I know there are a lot of people here in the valley that do that strategy, but I don't know that, like you said, I don't know that it stands out as much outside of just people from down here wanting to get up and go away.
Yeah. So I would say to someone that's okay, what do I do? My first step. So read the book, decide.
That's always a good first step, by the way.
Yes, read the book.
Read a book.
It's a good one. I read it. Yeah.
Decide for you. Is out of state for me? Is my comfort level in state? The other decision is am I going to hire a property manager or find a partner or do this on my own? And here's how you make that decision. Just know a couple years ago, you could, especially during COVID, you could absolutely throw furniture in a house and do really well. That has changed. That has absolutely changed. we're very fortunate that we're getting the same numbers on our rentals that we were a year ago and 2 years ago, but we have to work harder. Every day we have like our marketing song and dance that we do. We go in every rental and there's all these things you can kind of do to like hack the system and everything. But your heart really, if you're going to self-manage, you have to be into it. Like I've always, wanted to be a travel agent when I grew up, and I love giving guests this experience, and I'm really into this. But if you're just wanting to like make the money, you should either like partner with someone that is into this, and that's going to put in all the work, because it is a ton of work. Or, there are great property managers too. In fact, iTrip Vacations, if you're looking to do this in the Valley, so Megan Rodriguez, and she covers a lot of the East Valley and Peter South, and he covers Tempe and parts of Southwest Valley. And I will make sure that both of you have their contact so your listeners can follow up with them. So you just have to decide, am I going to put in like the time to do this, or do I want this to be completely passive? Because this is not passive.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. Long-term rentals are, for the most
passive,
part,
right?
Yeah, especially if you have property management. So let's talk about, what does property management look like if you actually want to be more passive on the short-term rental game? What does that look like? How much does it cost to have somebody manage your short-term rental for you?
Right. So there's two. So property management, they will run everything for you, but you are responsible to set it up. Now, I also want to give a shout out. My sister-in-law is a phenomenal designer, and she will design in the state and possibly do some remote stuff from a distance virtually. And design is everything, especially right now. You have to be like, your rental has to look like it just came out of a magazine. It has to look the best. So I can also give her contact to you guys, and you can pass it on to your listeners. But design is absolutely like everything. So it has to be the best design. So when you have a property manager, you still have to fully set up the house. Another option is, partnering. And so my partner, how that works, it's mostly passive for him, not completely. He does some of the bookkeeping and things like that. But some people are partnering with seasoned operators like myself, where we completely set it up. Like, we find the house, we work with the realtor, we work with the lender, we do all that, and we design it, and we stage it, and we do all that. We work with a cleaner, and we property manage it. So it's a complete front to back, where other people, they find the house themselves, they work with a realtor themselves, they design it themselves, they do all that, and then they turn it over to property manager. So, but a property manager typically is like about 20-25% of the gross.
Okay.
And then partnerships completely just vary on the person, and that all is different.
And then if you want to be more active but don't want to always be on the hook for doing the switch-arounds between guests, are there local cleaners that can do that for you? What does that look like if you're in a place that you want to be active in it and yet you're physically not there?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of how I am now. I mean, because being out of state, like, I rely on all my cleaners and my handyman. So there's all different ways to structure it. I mean, some people also will just work out something with their cleaner, and they'll kind of do like an in-between, and they'll be like, hey, let me give you extra because you're kind of running it. You're like a quasi, property manager. I want to be active, but I want you to be more than a cleaner. So let me give you a little extra. So there's like all different ways you can structure things.
The Klaus Team is different. With the Klaus Team, you have someone on your side. Where you live and make memories is important. We have more unique strategies than anyone else to help you accomplish what matters most to you. We can help you with traditional real estate as well as other options such as our lease purchase programs. We can help you buy first then sell, and we can bring you instant offers. We're here to help our neighbors achieve the American dream and help them build wealth through home ownership. For more info or to start your home search, visit us online at klausteam.com.
I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? If I go into a short-term rental and the worst case scenario, what is that?
The worst case scenario is you as like an owner is like that you don't have proper insurance and someone could sue you. So that's another thing is you have to have like commercial insurance, and also have to have a good real estate attorney relationship. So I absolutely love working with John Lohr up in Scottsdale. I consult with him for everything. So you have to have everything protected. The worst thing that could happen, well, is just stress. It can be very stressful, even though there's the air cover. And now today we're officially going to have our own insurance. I'm currently dealing with 2 people. They didn't trash the house, but they did. Both of our Wisconsin rentals last weekend had just a series of damages, not trashed, but just a bunch of little things that was very time consuming and, just energy drainers. So that wasn't fun to deal with. So things like that. And
what is the worst thing that has happened for you?
The worst thing that has happened. Actually, I had probably like a really horrible review that was falsified. Probably like 4 or 5 months ago. And I actually got it removed. I'm pretty good at getting reviews removed. So if that hadn't gotten removed, that would have been really bad. If you have one, you could have a review like completely damage you. And this is it can be mentally draining. And I would say to people, if you don't want to deal with that, that could be an indicator. Get a partner, have someone manage this. You have to deal with that. So I've been in sales for a long time, and I kind of know how to safeguard against that. So I train my guests on how they're supposed to review us. So we have near perfect review scores on every property. But that could be stressful when you have, every great once in a while, when you get that awful review that could really damage you. That could be stressful. When you have our Williams property has been incredibly stressful. Absolutely. We hired a contractor that wasn't licensed, and we spent thousands upon thousands of dollars in renovations. I mean, thousands. And a lot of that work had to be redone. And the contractor that redid it, we found out later, was completely overcharging us. And we spent thousands and thousands with him. And the reason we're keeping that property is because that rental is just crushing it. It's rented, pretty much every day, except in off season, which is only January, February. And really believe in that property. Just, you know what? I think the hardest thing is repairs, handyman repairs. And I told my husband the other day, I said, we've lived in our house in Mesa since 2018, and the handyman almost never comes here. Why is that? I feel like some of our rentals, 2 of them, the Williams one and the Milwaukee one, the handyman is there all the time. Why is that? So, and sometimes it's like, you have to think and make these tough decisions. Like, should I sell this property? And then you have to think about, well, wait a minute, we have a really low interest rate. We have all this equity. Well, this property is rented every day. This property, in Milwaukee isn't, but wait a minute, we have a 3.5% interest rate and we paid $160,000 for it. And it's just, tough. It's like decisions like that. First world problems, I guess. But
so I know that there's a lot of people that one of their big concerns is changing regulations, whether it's in HOAs or in municipalities.
Yeah.
How much of a gamble is it to get into short-term rentals because of that?
In Arizona, our regulations are nothing. They're nothing. I network with investors across the country. I know about how hard the California regulations are and some of these other ones. I read in detail the new Arizona regulations, I actually laughed when I read them. They're easy. Investors here have nothing to worry about. They're so easy.
But what about if things change?
I wouldn't worry about that. If things change, convert your rental to long-term. I don't think things are going to change. I would not worry about it. In fact, regulations of anything, they're actually good, especially how easy the ones are in Arizona, because they might help with the perceived saturation problem, because they might prevent people that would get into the game, not get into the game, and they're super easy. I think it's like $250 a year. Get your license. Don't be noisy. I mean, they're super, super easy. We have regulations in one of our Wisconsin rentals, and they're way stricter. Like, we actually have occupancy restrictions. Like, we can't have more than 8 people in our rental. And the regulations here are a breeze.
How do you stay on top of all those, being in all those different markets? How do you stay on top of knowing what the regulations
are? It's pretty straightforward. I mean, so we have, our lake one in Wisconsin, every year you pay your renewal. We can't have more than 8 people. Our 2 properties in Tennessee, it's like $50 a year. That's all there is. Now in Arizona, they just came out with regulations. I believe it's like $200 or $250 a year. And the beautiful thing about Arizona is there's no, I don't quote me on this, but I don't think there's an occupancy limit, which is wonderful, because most regulations do have occupancy, and some have you have to have like a 7-day minimum and things like that. So we don't have that here. So our regulations here are very loose.
What are you seeing with HOAs, especially in Arizona?
So some HOAs don't allow short-term rental. So what I would tell people is, if you find a property and it is a spectacular, like, unicorn.
Because most of the stuff you get is not in HOAs.
Right.
Correct.
I would say, you mean as far as me?
For you, yeah.
We actually have one property in an HOA, and when we bought it, we made sure to get in writing that they allow short-term rental. So I would tell people, if you want to buy something in an HOA, get in writing that they allow short-term rental, and only buy it if it's a really special property and and you can't, get this kind of property anywhere else. If it's like an average property, don't buy it. And if you do buy it, make sure you get in writing that they allow short-term rentals, and they should grandfather you if they would ever change it, and consult with a real estate attorney before you even move forward, and just double check, because every state has different laws too. So double check if you do want to buy the property and you do get that in writing by email, still consult with John Lohr or another real estate attorney before you move forward, and just double check what the Arizona laws are on that.
I feel like we see more adjustments to CC&Rs through HOAs where there's a minimum stay, like 30 days or 90 days, which then might take it from a short-term to a mid-term rental, like you brought up earlier. Might be your traveling nurses. It could be people, displaced by fire. Is that true, or that would be sort of a fallback plan in HOA potentially?
Yeah, but I would absolutely not buy that property. Absolutely not.
If they had any minimum restriction or
no
days.
way.
Okay.
No way. No.
Okay.
Do not. That's just locking yourself in the corner. I would not do it.
Okay.
So you brought it up before. I'd like to dive in a little bit and talk about themed short-term rentals.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that's really a great way to stand out. I've seen in Scottsdale and Phoenix, there's a lot of girly themes, bachelorette themes. And I've talked to some of these owners, and they've told me they crush it even in the summer, which is great because, summer in Phoenix is known to be really slow. But yeah, there's Harry Potter themes. You just have to be careful though. You can't brand it, because then you get into lawsuit issues. You can't say the Harry Potter house. You have to brand it you could say the Wizard house.
Yeah.
There's I saw another one that was
where's the Barbie house? Isn't the Barbie house?
Yeah, I guess you call it like the dollhouse. But
And I've seen
those are
like
pretty cool.
where they've somewhat recreated like the Friends living room.
Yeah.
And they'll call it the TV house and
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Pretty cool ideas.
Well, thank you so much for diving in deep. Now, this is not your only game. You also stand out in the knife world. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, well, I sell Cutco knives, and also have a magazine called Real Producers, too. That's specific to real estate agents.
So if people want to up their knife game, how would they get a hold of you?
Yes. So they can email me, cutcojenny@gmail. So CUTCOJENNI@gmail.
Well, thank you so much. And if anybody wants to explore their options in the short-term rental game, you can always get a hold of Ty or myself at KlausTeam.com. That's KlausTeam.com.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending time with us this week at State 48 Homeowner, the ins and outs of owning an Arizona home. You can connect with us for more information, submit topics you'd like us to further discuss. You can see relevant videos, give us feedback, answer your real estate questions, and more at state48homeowner.com.